My parents gave my sister a brand new BMW with a giant red bow on top for her college graduation. A car. A luxury, top-of-the-line vehicle that cost more than my entire 4 years of college tuition combined. Me, I got a crisp, shiny $2 bill. $2, not even enough for a cheap coffee. And when I confronted them, they just shrugged and said, "It's different for you, sweetie." Different for me. Was I wrong to pack a bag, walk out at 2 a.m., and block every single one of them, severing ties with my entire family right then and there? Tell me if you would have done the same thing, because honestly, I still question if I overreacted, even though every fiber of my being screamed that I had to escape. Let me take you back to the beginning, to a childhood that, on the surface, looked perfectly normal. We lived in a nice suburban house, went on decent vacations, and my parents always presented themselves as loving and fair. But beneath that veneer, there was always a subtle, insidious current of favoritism flowing directly towards my younger sister, Chloe. She was 5 years my junior, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed darling who could do no wrong in their eyes. I, on the other hand, was the eldest, the quiet, studious one, with brown hair and eyes that were deemed less striking. From a young age, I noticed it. Chloe got the bigger slice of cake, the newer toys, the more expensive clothes. If we both wanted the same thing, Chloe usually got it. If I excelled in school, it was met with a nod. If Chloe got a B, it was a cause for celebration and a new treat. I remember once, when I was 10 and Chloe was 5, I spent weeks meticulously building a Lego castle, a massive, intricate structure that I was incredibly proud of. Chloe, in a fit of pique because she couldn't reach a cookie jar, swatted at it and sent it crashing to the floor, hundreds of tiny plastic bricks scattering everywhere. I burst into tears, heartbroken. My parents' reaction, "Chloe's just a child, she didn't mean it. You can build another one, can't you? Be a good big sister." I rebuilt it, of course, but the sting of their indifference to my feelings, and their immediate defense of her, stuck with me. As we grew older, the favoritism didn't just persist, it escalated. Chloe was always the center of attention. Her dance recitals were packed with family members. My academic awards ceremonies were sparsely attended, usually just by one parent, if I was lucky. When it came to extracurriculars, Chloe had endless opportunities: horseback riding, expensive art classes, private tutors for subjects she wasn't even struggling in. My requests for things like advanced coding classes or a better microscope for my science projects were often met with, "We can't afford that right now, sweetie, money's tight." Yet, somehow, money was never too tight for Chloe's latest whim. When I started looking at colleges, I was told I needed to apply for every scholarship imaginable and consider state schools to keep costs down. I worked my tail off, earning several scholarships and getting into a good, but not overly expensive, university. Chloe, on the other hand, was encouraged to apply to elite, out-of-state universities with high tuition, and my parents promised to cover whatever financial aid didn't. They even hired a college consultant specifically for her, something they laughed off when I suggested it for myself. My college years were a blur of studying, working 2 part-time jobs, and trying to make ends meet. I lived in the cheapest dorms, ate ramen noodles more often than I cared to admit, and rarely went home because the trip was too expensive. My parents would call occasionally, mostly to ask about Chloe and her latest achievements, or to complain about her spending habits, as if I had some insight. I graduated with honors, a degree in software engineering, and a mountain of student loan debt, despite my scholarships. My parents came to my graduation, sat in the middle of the auditorium, and promptly left for a dinner reservation. As soon as the ceremony ended, barely offering a congratulatory hug. My graduation gift, a card with a generic message and a $10 gift certificate to a bookstore I never used. I wasn't expecting a car, of course, but even a heartfelt "we're proud of you" would have been nice. It was just another in a long line of disappointments. Fast forward 5 years. I was now 27, working hard in my field, slowly paying off my loans, and living independently in a small but comfortable apartment in a different city. Chloe was 22, just finishing her degree in creative arts, a nebulous field that my parents seemed to fund without question. She had spent her college years living in a swanky apartment near campus, funded entirely by them, and driving a perfectly good, relatively new car that they had also bought for her when she turned 18. I had visited home a few times over the years, always trying to convince myself that things had changed, that maybe their favoritism had mellowed. It never had. Every conversation revolved around Chloe's latest drama, her latest boyfriend, her latest artistic endeavor, or her latest spending spree. My achievements were always brushed aside, or worse, compared to hers in a way that made mine seem insignificant. "Oh, that's nice, honey," my mom would say when I told her about a promotion, but Chloe just got her photography featured in a student art show. Isn't that amazing? Then came Chloe's graduation. My parents had been talking about it for months, planning a huge party, inviting everyone they knew. I felt a familiar dread settling in. I knew what this meant. Another showcase for Chloe, another reminder of my own lesser status. I drove the 5 hours back to my hometown, trying to mentally prepare myself. The graduation ceremony itself was a blur. Chloe looked radiant, and my parents beamed with pride. After the ceremony, we went back to their house for the party. The backyard was transformed into an elaborate event space, complete with caterers, a DJ, and a massive tent. It was lavish, over the top, and a stark contrast to my own quiet graduation celebration. Throughout the party, my parents kept making grand announcements about Chloe's future, her brilliant artistic career, and how proud they were of their little star. I mostly mingled, trying to avoid being drawn into conversations about Chloe's accomplishments. As the evening wore on, just as the sun was beginning to set, my dad called everyone's attention. He stood next to a covered object in the driveway, a massive red sheet draped over it. My heart sank. I knew, I just knew. My mom clapped her hands together, practically bouncing with excitement. "All right, everyone." My dad boomed, his voice full of theatrical flair. "We have one more very special surprise for our amazing graduate, Chloe." He pulled the sheet off with a flourish. There it was, a gleaming brand, new metallic blue BMW, shimmering in the twilight. It had a massive red bow tied to the roof, like something out of a commercial. A collective gasp went through the crowd, followed by cheers and applause. Chloe shrieked with delight, running to hug them both, practically sobbing with joy. My parents basked in the adoration, soaking it all in. I stood there, frozen, a knot of ice forming in my stomach. The silence around me felt deafening, even with all the noise. People were oohing and aahing, touching the car, congratulating Chloe. My parents looked over at me, a quick glance, before turning back to their beaming daughter. After a few minutes, my mom, still flushed with excitement, finally walked over to me. She had a small, brightly colored envelope in her hand. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice a little distracted, "we almost forgot about you." She pressed the envelope into my hand. "We know you're doing so well, so we thought you'd appreciate a little something." My dad joined her, clapping me on the shoulder. "Yeah, you're so independent, always have been. You don't need all the bells and whistles, right?" He chuckled. I looked down at the envelope. It was a cartoonish card, one that looked like it belonged to a child's birthday party. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, nestled against a cheesy drawing of a smiling sun, was a crisp $2 bill. $2. My heart didn't just sink, it shattered. My vision blurred, and the sounds of the party became muffled. A BMW, a $2 bill. The stark contrast, the blatant, cruel disregard for my feelings, for my entire existence, was a punch to the gut. All the years of subtle slights, the overlooked achievements, the constant comparison, it all coalesced into this one agonizing moment. $2. I heard my voice, barely a whisper, thick with disbelief. My mom tilted her head. "Yes, sweetie, it's a token of our appreciation for you being so self-sufficient. We know you'll use it wisely." My dad nodded in agreement. "You're a saver, always have been. Chloe, well, she needs a bit more help, you know." So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I stood there, clutching that measly $2 bill, looking at my sister practically doing cartwheels around her brand new luxury car, and at my parents, who genuinely seemed to believe they had done nothing wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted them? Would you have just walked away quietly? Or would you have exploded? Tell me, because I truly felt like I was losing my mind in that moment. I stared at them, and for the first time in my life, I saw them not as my parents, but as two people who had systematically diminished my worth for nearly 3 decades. The anger, the hurt, the profound sense of betrayal that had simmered beneath the surface for so long, finally boiled over. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a strange clarity cutting through the fog of pain. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I simply looked at my mom, then my dad, and then at Chloe, who was now posing for pictures with her new car, oblivious to the emotional implosion happening just a few feet away. "This is it," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "This is really it." My mom frowned. "What are you talking about, sweetie? Don't be dramatic." I held up the $2 bill. This is what you think I'm worth, after everything, after working my ass off for everything I have, while you hand her everything on a silver platter." My dad's face began to redden. "Now listen here, young lady. Don't you dare ruin Chloe's special day with your jealousy." Jealousy? That word, so often thrown at me throughout my life, was the final straw. Jealousy? I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "No, Dad, it's not jealousy. It's resentment. It's knowing that I've never been enough for you, never been seen, never been valued. And this." I gestured wildly at the BMW, then at the $2 in my hand. "This just proves it beyond a shadow of a doubt." I could see guests turning their heads, sensing the shift in atmosphere. My mom started to pull me aside. "Let's not make a scene. We can talk about this later." "There won't be a later," I said, my voice firm. "Because I'm done. I am completely and utterly done." I looked them both squarely in the eyes. "You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine." Without another word, I turned and walked away from the party, leaving the $2 bill on a nearby table. I didn't look back. I walked straight to my car, got in, and started the engine. The 5-hour drive back to my apartment was a blur of tears and raw emotion. I replayed every single instance of their favoritism, every hurtful comment, every overlooked achievement. It wasn't just about the car or the $2. It was about a lifetime of feeling invisible, a lifetime of craving their love and approval only to be met with indifference. By the time I got home, it was almost 2 a.m. My eyes were red and swollen, and my head throbbed. I felt an emptiness in my chest, a profound sense of loss, but also a strange, liberating calm. I knew what I had to do. I pulled out my phone. First, I blocked my mom's number, then my dad's, then Chloe's, then my aunt's, my uncle's, my cousins, anyone who was directly connected to my parents, and who had, over the years, either enabled their behavior or simply stood by silently. I went through my social media, unfriending and blocking every family member. I deleted old photos, trying to erase the painful memories. It was a digital severing, a declaration that I was no longer a part of their narrative. I then packed a small bag with essentials, grabbed my laptop, and booked a last-minute flight to a different city for the next morning. I couldn't stay in that apartment in that city, so close to them. I needed a clean break, a fresh start. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, there were frantic calls from numbers I didn't recognize, texts from mutual acquaintances, even an email from my mom from an old account. I ignored them all. I started therapy, processing years of emotional neglect and abuse. It was hard, incredibly hard. There were moments of doubt, moments when I missed the idea of having a family, even if they had been dysfunctional. But then I would remember the BMW, the $2, and the casual disregard in their eyes, and the resolve would harden again. I poured myself into my work, made new friends, and slowly, painstakingly, started building a life free from the shadow of my family's favoritism. It took time, but I eventually found peace. I learned to validate myself, to celebrate my own achievements, and to understand that their inability to love me equally was a reflection of their own flaws, not mine. So here I am, years later. I've built a successful career. I have a wonderful chosen family of friends, and I'm genuinely happy. I've never regretted my decision that night. Sometimes I wonder what they think, what stories they tell about my sudden disappearance. Do they blame me? Do they understand what they did? Probably not, but it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I chose myself. I chose my own well-being over a toxic relationship. My parents gave my sister a BMW, and they gave me $2. In return, I gave myself a life of freedom and self-respect. If you've ever felt overlooked or undervalued by your family, know that you're not alone, and it's okay to choose your own path. Like this video if you were on my side and understand why I did what I did. Subscribe for more stories like this, where people have to make impossible choices for their own well-being. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.